Hello and welcome to Two Peds in a Pod, the paediatric medical education podcast. Remember, you can hear our entire back catalogue of episodes on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and of course, our SoundCloud. So please tell your colleagues and friends and hit that subscribe button. I hope you enjoy today's episode.
Hi, and welcome to this edition of the Two Peds in a Pod podcast. This is the latest in an occasional series on advanced clinical practice. I'm Rhian Smith. I'm an Advanced Neonatal Nurse Practitioner in North Wales. Here with me today are two other ANNPs, Becky, Joyce and Vicky, Payne. Welcome to you both.
Hi, I'm Becky. I work in Poole in Dorset and I've been qualified as an ANNP for almost 5 years.
Thanks, Rhiannon, for having us here today. I think we're both really excited to be here. I'm Vicky, I'm an ANNP and I work in the Princess Anne Hospital in Southampton, and I also work as a Principal Teaching Fellow at the University of Southampton.
Great stuff. So as far as advanced practice roles go in the UK, neonatal nurse practitioners have been around for a while, haven't they, Vicky?
Yeah. I guess the whole interest in ACPs or ANNPs started kind of quite a long time ago now in the 1980s, but originally they were already kind of in progress, I guess, in the US, in the States, as early as the 1970s. And it was really all started, in the Wessex region where Becky and I kind of both work. And it was really kind of the interest in them was sort of developed because there was this perceived variation in quality during kind of the rotational changes of junior doctors and GP trainees. So I think for me, I like to always kind of remember that it goes back to trying to improve quality and not necessarily about shortages in doctors and filling gaps on rotas. And there were so many similar conversations had then as we're still having now about, well, who's going to regulate us? Are we going to be a clinician with judgment and decision making, or do you want someone to do skills and competencies? And I think, this podcast is really well timed because there is now so much kind of interest in advanced practice kind of nationally. The Higher Education England and NHS England are now kind of hugely supporting ACP roles, and so I think advanced practice is about to enter a really exciting progressive time, I think, in our history. So I just wondered, I think we've all got quite different roles, and I think, Becky, you have quite a unique role as far as advanced practice is concerned. Could you tell us a bit about what a day is like for you in Poole?
So yeah, our unit in Poole is slightly different to lots in the UK in that we have no junior doctors. So we've got 5 neonatal consultants and our team of 10 ANNPs with 2 clinical fellows. So most days we have 2 nurse practitioners on a shift and 1 at night with a paediatric registrar as support in the main hospital, which is actually across the road. And then we have our consultants on call at home attending deliveries or emergencies if necessary. So as you can appreciate, that really relies on quite sound decision-making skills and confidence and competence in assessing and managing whatever can come through the door. It has been a super steep learning curve, and most days still do present a new challenge. As we all know, there's no such thing as a typical day when you're an ANNP. No 2 days are ever the same, but that diversity is partly what I love about the job. So I started my nursing career 18 years ago on a level 1 special care baby unit in Dorchester, which now accepts babies greater than 32 weeks gestation. And then I moved to where I am now in Poole on our level 2 neonatal intensive care unit, where we've got 4 intensive care spaces, 6 high dependency and 10 special care cots. So we accept babies greater than 27 weeks and have an average of about 400 admissions a year. During my training, I also worked on the level 3 tertiary unit in Southampton, where Vicky works, who obviously care for the sicker and smaller babies and includes a range of specialist services, including neonatal surgery. So essentially my role on NICU in Poole involves wearing one of 3 different hats. Either I'm covering the NICU, which involves presenting the babies on the ward round, implementing care plans, chasing results, performing clinical skills like cannulation and admitting new babies. Or I'm covering the postnatal ward and transitional care and delivery suite, which involves reviewing babies, attending deliveries, stabilising those babies before they're transferred to NICU. And then my final role involves preparing babies and their families for discharge and holding ANNP clinics to review outpatients. We're also, as a team, allocated only one management day a month, which then we can get involved in audits and teaching and simulation training and things. So, Rhian, is there any similarities or differences in your role?
Yeah, well, some similarities, some differences. The unit that I work on is called a sub-regional neonatal intensive care centre, which serves the needs of the population of North Wales, but it doesn't also equally fit into the levels of care model that you have in England. So similarities, we care for babies who are greater than 26 weeks gestation, and we also host the North Wales Neonatal Transport Service. Like you say, a typical day is really hard to describe. I could be attending deliveries. I could be going home checks on the postnatal ward. Could be on the neonatal unit ward round, or supervising our paediatric trainees with them gaining skills. My unit is really committed to us enabling us to maintain our 4 pillars of advanced clinical practice. So I could also be teaching, consenting families who are entering a research trial, or attending departmental or network meetings. If I've got my transport hat on, I could be retrieving or repatriating babies. And in this case, I may be working quite independently in what would traditionally look like a medical role. I would be the lead for that transfer. Or I could be part of a consultant-led transferring team for the sicker babies. So how about you, Vicky? Similarities and differences to how Becky and I work? What about your typical day?
Yeah, my typical day. So I guess I'm a little bit different in that I actually now work the majority of my kind of whole-time job post working for the University of Southampton. So a typical day might be preparing, designing or delivering teaching materials for modules that I'm module lead for on the Neonatal Advanced Clinical Practice Masters at the university. I might be marking student assessments, but equally I could also be on nights, or I could be on a weekend shift, or like you said, we've also got the Sonnet transport team at Southampton Neonatal Unit, so I could be out on a transfer, I could be doing my clinical role. It can be a bit difficult to juggle all of those things sometimes, but I think that's what I love about it. That's what I love about it. I love the fact that every day is really different. In terms of my clinical role, I think I do something very similar to what you have both said in terms of leading ward rounds and attending high risk deliveries. I think on our unit, we maybe are somewhere in the middle of the two of you in terms of the kind of non-management time that my fellow ANNPs get. So obviously I work all of my clinical hours clinically on the rota, but certainly my ANNP colleagues get somewhere between 10 and 20% kind of non-clinical time, depending a bit on how each rota is staffed. Apparently, I also do podcasts now in my non-typical day, and I've obviously prepared manuscripts for publication as part of a kind of academic research role, and I review and peer review articles for publication for journals too sometimes. So yeah, really varied, kind of different days, and I think that's what we all love about it. Becky, I think that you said you had a really steep learning curve when you first started. I think we can probably all appreciate that to some extent. Can you maybe just tell us, a bit about kind of that kind of whole concept of transition to being an ANNP from being a bedside nurse?
Yeah, sure. So one of the modules during the ANNP course is Transition to Advanced Practice. So this essentially documents your individual journeys through probably one of the toughest years of your life. Well, it certainly was for me. And it involves a lot of reflection on where you were, your experiences, and what you've learnt along the way. So most people who embark on the ANNP pathway have been neonatal nurses for some time, and certainly I relished the possibility of extending my roles and skill set. What I hadn't really taken into consideration was that despite being a nurse for more than 10 years and feeling like I was an expert on caring for these tiny little human beings, that suddenly I'd realised actually how much I didn't know. I remember feeling like I didn't really belong in the nursing team anymore, but I certainly wasn't part of the medical team. So it was quite an isolating time to begin with, particularly for me as my two wonderful ANNP mentors both retired during my training. I didn't take it personally. But learning skills like feeling for femoral pulses, listening for heart murmurs, performing venipuncture and newborn checks were initially really quite challenging, with a great deal of responsibility on your shoulders. The first time I admitted a baby to the unit, I felt like I had to justify my rationale to literally everyone. And I had to learn suddenly how to explain concepts to parents that brought their new parent euphoria crashing down around them. My first lumbar puncture and chest drains were utterly terrifying. And the expectation only a week after I'd completed my skills competency that I could intubate, insert umbilical lines and manage a 24-weeker that came through the door is an experience I'll never forget. But obviously I have had phenomenal support along the way, but the pressure, probably mainly induced at times, of being the person in the know can be quite overwhelming at times. Having said that, I couldn't be prouder of my achievements and feel truly honoured to be able to care for the babies and their families. So, Vicky, you teach on the ANNP course. Does some of what I've said resonate with your own experiences and the students that you teach in Southampton?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think you touched on some really good points there, Becky, and really eloquently put, I think, about that kind of transition from being like this expert nurse to kind of going through the course and thinking, oh my gosh, like actually I know nothing. And
Definitely.
we kind of joke, I think, at the beginning of the course, anyone that's been through it will know that, we kind of joke that actually we kind of pick apart all the things that you think you know and kind of unpick all of that. And then hopefully throughout the year, we put all those building blocks back together and build you back up. So we almost break you down to build you back up, which sounds really harsh, but I think any student...
That sounds like the SAS.
I think they do need to put that in the ANNP training perspectives.
ANNP boot camp, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think it's true, and I think there's the whole concept, isn't there, of going from the side of the bed to the head of the bed in terms of making decisions. And I certainly found it really hard, and it wasn't until a couple of years, probably post qualifying, that I really kind of found my feet. And it's something that I still struggle with now, is that kind of confidence in decision making, I think. And I think for anyone, either as a nurse looking to do it or as a medical mentor supporting a trainee kind of ACP in practice, I think it's really important to understand that transition is really hard, and that it's very different to supervising a junior doctor in practice. Our needs are quite different in terms of that transition. So I think you absolutely need your academic institute, your higher education institute, to be supportive in terms of the kind of academic tutors and stuff that you have, and you need to have a really supportive family, very patient family, and I think
Definitely.
you also need a really, really supportive clinical kind of team that supports your kind of ACP journey. So, Rhian, you've obviously been through this as well. What advice would you give people going through it, of things that you found helpful or things that perhaps were not so helpful for you?
Well, yeah, my own experience of transition to advanced practice was really shaped by the great teaching and support that I received from Southampton. But I also went on some short placements that had been arranged so that I could experience being part of an ANNP team. Different that differently to both of you, I was actually, me and my colleague were the first ANNPs on my unit. So the unit and us and as ANNPs were kind of growing together. Which had its positives and its negatives. I really had that imposter syndrome thing that you talked about, Becky. But I kind of decided that I needed to have confidence in the training that I was undertaking, and that if I was good enough to pass the course, then just maybe I was good enough to actually do this job, which kind of was a bit of a needed to get my head around that. And then once I did, that was really quite helpful. I was so fortunate to have a really supportive nursing manager. So even though she wasn't an advanced practitioner herself, she was really kind of invested in the process, and a fantastic medical mentor who really believed in me. So
Nice.
I would say get those people in. Get those people in place, and then you can do whatever you need to do. So Vicky, you've recently completed your doctorate. Many congratulations on that.
I have, thank you.
Well done. So do we call you Dr. Vicky, or are you Vicky Payne, PhD?
Or
and
Dr.
Actually, you're a really great you're a really great example of where ANNP training can take you.
Oh, well, no pressure there. Thanks for that. Or I could be Dr. Vicky Payne, who's a nurse but does the job of a doctor, but is a nurse. Oh, it's all it all gets very complicated. Generally, I'll respond to most things, Vicky, oi, you. But I think I've gone a bit around the houses with this. I think when I finished my Viva, I was so thrilled. I changed my Twitter handle to Dr. Vicky Payne, and then within 24 hours, I'd taken it off and just kind of deleted it. And I think generally, I mean, I don't want to make broad sweeping statements about all nurses, but I think generally we're not that good at kind of promoting ourselves or celebrating our own achievements or putting ourselves out there. And you hear, don't you, all the time, probably on the units, well, I'm just a nurse, and it feels a bit uncomfortable, a bit showy offy to stick doctor in front of you, in front of your name. And I think in the end, I've spoken to lots of people and I've come around to the fact that actually it's a huge achievement. It was a huge amount of work. I've been studying sort of non-stop with some breaks in the middle, but mostly for about 10 years.
Wow.
And so, I know, from the ANNP course straight into doing a PhD is essentially what I did, which seemed like a great idea at the time. So actually, if you go onto Twitter now, you will see I have put Dr. Vicky Payne, and I think that is about, I guess, sort of celebrating your achievement, but in the same way, it is like when you take on that ANNP, ACP kind of role, in that it's about getting a seat at the table to improve care or to make changes, to improve the quality of care. Being an ANNP gives you a seat at a very different table to influence very different decisions at a very different level. And so for me, the PhD or the doctorate is the same as that. It's about being able to have a seat at another very different table, to make very different decisions. And I'm really excited about what the postdoctorate kind of research world might hold for me and what opportunities there might be out there. And hopefully to inspire others, to show nurses, what we can do as a profession and what we can achieve. I think we're in a really exciting place now where there's so many opportunities for us. So I think, the PhD is a platform to kind of take the role into a different direction. There's all sorts of opportunities now, isn't there? Like Becky was saying about having time to do QI and kind of local audit work, or maybe influence network level policy, leading on service development. And then there's other, some of our ANNP colleagues are doing other roles, like, being the clinical lead for the neonatal unit, or taking on kind of sort of the regional advanced practice centre roles. We've got an ANNP that's an editor of the Journal of Neonatal Nursing, and then you've got, PhD being linked to kind of consultant level practice. So, I think the opportunities are really exciting moving forward. And I guess moving on from that a little bit, almost coming full circle to the beginning really about some of the challenges for ACP roles. The Higher Education England have now developed the Centre for Advanced Practice, so you can go and look on their website, and they've now got these regional advanced practice centres to kind of lead on developing advanced practice across kind of the UK. And there's now a plan, I think, that HEI, so higher education institutions, are going to be able to be accredited with HEE, and it will form some sort of a register, so not kind of an NMC register for advanced practice, but you'll be able to get accreditation with Higher Education England to show that you've done a course that's gone through rigorous scrutiny and has met the kind of advanced practice capabilities framework which HEE published several years ago now. So that's really exciting. I think that's a really exciting time moving forward. And if, like, you guys, both of you have kind of qualified from a centre that then gets accreditation, you should be able to apply for that kind of retrospectively in the next kind of year or so. So I think that's quite exciting. And then obviously the other thing that we've got that's come out recently is the British Association of Perinatal Medicine kind of career framework for ANNPs. So Rhian, as a qualified ANNP, what do you think about that? Have you utilised it yet in your kind of career planning?
No, not as yet, but I have got my appraisal next week. It's quite new, yeah. But do you know what? It's just great that BAPM have acknowledged ANNPs as such an important part of the neonatal workforce. So it's not clear how it's going to fit into job planning for me or for my unit. And as I said, ANNPs have kind of grown with the service that I have locally. But it's good to have the framework in place, especially as people are taking on the ANNP training and role really quite a lot earlier in their careers. For example, I was in my early 30s when I qualified. So, potentially we've got 30 years of having this role and having this title. And, the thought of being on an SHO nights type rota when you're hobbling around in your mid-60s probably doesn't fill a lot of ANNPs with a lot of joy, really. But it's... So I think it's going to be good to recognise that individuals are going to want to follow different routes for progression. So it's just great that it's there along with accreditation. I think it's going to be really good that some sort of register might be put in place, because that's something that I think we've really thought has been necessary for quite a while now. So sadly, I think our time might nearly be up. But thank you both so much for your time and contribution to this episode. And thank you out there for those of you who've been listening. And we hope that you found it interesting. So bye for now from all of us. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for taking the time to download our podcast this week. If you enjoy our podcasts, please tell your friends and colleagues and subscribe to us on Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and of course, our SoundCloud. Thanks for listening.